Good evening, dear friend. Imagine settling into a quiet corner of your home, the world outside fading as the glow of a candle flickers nearby. Tonight, we're re-stepping into a realm of ancient secrets and forgotten voices. The lives of women in Imperial China. Picture a misty dawn over a village, where the scent of jasmine mingles with the smoke of morning fires, or the hushed elegance of a palace, where silk robes rustle against polished floors. These women mothers, daughters, warriors, their stories often lost in the shadow of emperors and wars, but their voices still whisper to us, carried on the wind through centuries. So, find a cozy spot, maybe a warm cup of tea, and let me take you back to a time when the world was both beautiful and unforgiving. This is what really happened to women in Imperial China. Imperial China stretches across over 2,000 years, from the Qing dynasty in the 3rd century BCE to the Qing dynasty's fall in 1912. It was a world of staggering beauty. Think of pagodas rising through the fog, markets buzzing with the clink of coins, and scholars penning poetry under lantern light. But it was also a world of rigid order, shaped by Confucianism, a philosophy that placed harmony and hierarchy above all else. For women, this meant a life defined by duty, obedience to their father before marriage, to their husband after, and to their eldest son in widowhood. These three obediences were the backbone of society, dictating a woman's place in the family and beyond. Yet this is only the surface. Beneath these rules, women's lives were a tapestry of resilience, creativity, and quiet rebellion. To understand them, we must look beyond the laws and into their daily realities, their joys, their pains, and the ways they carved out meaning in a world that often sought to confine them. Let's start with a conflict that defined many women's lives: the pressure to marry and produce sons. Marriage wasn't just a union, it was a contract, often arranged when a girl was still a child. A woman's value was tied to her ability to continue her husband's family line, especially by bearing male heirs. Failure to do so could mean rejection, shame, or even being replaced by a concubine. This pressure wasn't just personal, it was societal, woven into the very fabric of Chinese culture, where ancestor worship demanded sons to carry on rituals. A woman who couldn't fulfill this role faced a precarious future, her status in the household fragile. But this conflict wasn't the end of their story. It was often the beginning of their strength. Consider Mei, a young woman in a Song dynasty village, around the year 1100. Mei was 14 when her parents arranged her marriage to a farmer named Liang. She'd never met him, but on her wedding day she was carried in a red sedan chair to his home, her face hidden behind a veil. The air was thick with the smell of incense and roasted chestnuts, and firecrackers popped to ward off evil spirits. Mei's heart raced not from love, but from fear of the unknown. Would Liang be kind? Would she bear sons? Her new life was a gamble, her future resting on factors she couldn't control. At first, Liang was gentle, but when Mei's first child was a daughter, his warmth faded. Whispers spread in the village, and Mei felt the weight of their judgment, yet she didn't break. She poured her love into her daughter, teaching her to weave, and found solace in the rhythm of the loom. Its steady creak a small rebellion against her worries. The social context of Mei's world was one of strict roles, but also hidden opportunities. Women in Imperial China were rarely seen as equals to men. They couldn't take the imperial exams to become officials, own property in their own name, or move freely without male permission. But within these limits, women built lives of purpose. In rural areas, they worked alongside men in the fields, their hands calloused from planting rice or harvesting millet. In cities, they ran households, managed budgets, and taught children the values of loyalty and respect. Some women, especially in wealthier families, learned to read and write, though this was rare. These skills gave them a voice, even if it was confined to the home. Women also formed tight-knit communities, sharing stories and secrets, creating bonds that sustained them through hardship. These networks were their strength, a quiet power that society couldn't suppress. But not all women accepted their roles quietly. A second conflict arose when women dared to step beyond their prescribed duties, challenging the very order of society. To defy tradition was to risk everything: reputation, family, even life. Yet some women did, driven by necessity, ambition, or sheer will. This conflict was most vivid in times of crisis, when the rigid rules of Confucianism bent under the weight of war, famine, or rebellion. A woman who took up a sword, led a household, or spoke out could be hailed as a hero or condemned as a disgrace. The line was thin, and the consequences were steep. Takes you. A woman from the Tang dynasty, around 750 CE. The Tang was a golden age, known for its openness, but also a time of turmoil, with rebellions shaking the empire. Zhao grew up in a frontier town where raids by nomadic tribes were common. Her father, a former soldier, taught her to wield a dagger, an unusual skill for a girl. When a raid struck her village, Zhao didn't hide. She fought alongside the men, her blade flashing in the torchlight, helping to drive the attackers away. Word of her courage spread, and soon she was training other women, forming a small band of defenders. Zhu's defiance wasn't just physical, it was a rejection of the idea that women were weak or passive. But her actions came at a cost. The village elders, uneasy with her boldness, pressured her to marry and settle. Xu refused, choosing a life of independence, though it meant living on the margins. Her name whispered as both legend and warning. Historically, women like Xu were rare but not unheard of. The Tang dynasty in particular allowed women more freedoms than later periods. They could ride horses, play polo, or become Taoist nuns, seeking spiritual autonomy. But these opportunities were fleeting. By the Song dynasty, Confucianism tightened its grip, and practices like foot-binding emerged, physically and symbolically restricting women. Foot-binding, which we'll explore later, was a stark reminder of society's expectations. A woman's beauty and obedience were paramount, often at the cost of her freedom. Yet, even in these constraints, women found ways to assert themselves, whether through art, storytelling, or quiet acts of resistance. One of the most enduring traditions was foot-binding, a practice that became a symbol of femininity but also a source of suffering. It began among the elite in the Song dynasty, around the 10th century, and spread widely by the Ming and Qing dynasties. A girl's feet were bound at a young age, her toes bent under and her arches broken to create tiny lotus feet, no longer than 10 centimeters. The process was excruciating, often causing infections or lifelong pain. Bound feet were seen as beautiful, a sign of refinement and discipline, but they also limited mobility, tying women to the home. The sensory details are vivid: the smell of herbal ointments, the soft clink of embroidered lotus shoes, the muffled sobs of a child enduring the binding. Yet, women turned this pain into art, crafting intricate shoes that were masterpieces of embroidery, their needles threading stories of endurance. Let's meet Ling, a girl from the Ming dynasty around 1500. Ling was 6 when her mother began binding her feet. Each night, as the bandages tightened, Ling bit her lip to stifle her cries, the pain searing through her small body. Her mother whispered that this was her path to a good marriage, to a life of comfort. Ling believed her, dreaming of a future where her tiny feet would win her a kind husband. By 16, her feet were perfect lotuses, and she married into a merchant's family. But the reality was harsh. Her bound feet made walking difficult, and her husband's family treated her as a trophy, not a partner. Ling found solace in embroidery, her fingers dancing over silk, creating shoes that told stories of birds and rivers, symbols of the freedom she could only imagine. Her work became her voice, a quiet rebellion against her confinement. The social consequences of foot-binding were profound. It reinforced the idea that a woman's value lay in her appearance and submission, creating a culture where mobility and independence were sacrificed for status. It also deepened the divide between classes. Poor women, who needed to work in the fields, often kept their natural feet, while bound feet became a mark of privilege. Ethnic groups like the Hakka rejected the practice entirely, valuing women's labor over aesthetics. Foot-binding also fostered sisterhoods, as women gathered to sew and share stories, building communities within their constraints. But the cost was undeniable: a lifetime of pain and dependence, a physical reminder of society's expectations. Another conflict emerged in the palace, where women faced a different kind of struggle: the battle for power and survival in the imperial court. The Forbidden City was a world of opulence, with jade carvings and silk tapestries, but also a battlefield of intrigue. Concubines and consorts competed for the emperor's favor, knowing that a single misstep could mean exile or death. A woman's success depended on her beauty, wit, and ability to bear sons. But even then, jealousy and betrayal were constant threats. This conflict wasn't just personal, it shaped dynasties, as powerful women influenced emperors or ruled through their sons. Consider Lian, a concubine in the Han dynasty. Around 100 BCE, Lian was 16 when she entered the palace, chosen for her grace and skill with the zith. Her days were a whirlwind of rituals, painting her face with white powder, dressing in robes heavy with gold thread, and performing for the emperor. The air was thick with the scent of sandalwood, and the halls echoed with the soft plucking of strings. Lian dreamed of rising to consort, perhaps even empress, but the court was a nest of rivals. Another concubine, envious of Lian's favor, spread rumors of her disloyalty. Lian's quick wit saved her. She composed a poem that moved the emperor, proving her loyalty. But the victory was fleeting. She lived in constant fear, knowing one wrong move could end her. Lian's story shows the razor's edge of court life, where power and peril walked hand in hand. If you're enjoying this journey through Imperial China, subscribe if you liked the video. Your support keeps these stories alive. The imperial court wasn't just a stage for personal ambition. It was the heart of a historical climax that shaped China's destiny. During the Tang dynasty, around 700 CE, one woman rose above the rest, defying every expectation. Wu Zetian, the only female emperor in Chinese history. Wu began as a low-ranking concubine, but through cunning, charisma, and sheer will, she climbed the ranks, becoming empress and, eventually, emperor in her own right. Her reign was a lightning bolt, shattering the Confucian order that confined women. She ruled with an iron hand, reforming the bureaucracy, promoting Buddhism and expanding China's influence. But her power came at a cost. Critics called her ruthless, accusing her of murdering rivals, even her own children, to secure her throne. Whether true or exaggerated, these stories reflect the fear she inspired. Wu's rule was a paradox, a woman who broke free of her chains but wielded power in a system that still bound others. Her legacy, controversial yet undeniable, showed what women could achieve when given the chance, even in a world stacked against them. Let's meet another woman, Chen, who lived during Wu's reign. Chen was a palace maid. Her days spent polishing jade ornaments and serving tea to high-ranking consorts. The air in the palace was heavy with the scent of lotus blossoms, and the clink of porcelain cups echoed through the halls. Chen admired Wu from afar, whispering her name with awe, but her own life was far humbler. One day she overheard a plot against the empress, a group of officials planning to poison her. Chen faced a choice: stay silent and safe, or risk her life to warn Wu. She chose courage, slipping a note to a trusted guard. The plot was foiled, and though Chen's role was never recorded, she was rewarded with a small sum of silver, enough to free her from servitude. Chen's story, though fictional, mirrors the countless women whose quiet acts of bravery shaped history. Their names lost, but their impact enduring. Despite these individual triumphs, the collective resilience of women in Imperial China was their true strength. Across villages, cities, and palaces, women built networks of support that sustained them through hardship. In rural areas, they gathered at wells, sharing laughter and advice as they washed clothes. In urban households, they taught each other embroidery or herbal remedies, passing down knowledge like a sacred flame. These bonds were lifelines, especially for women facing abusive husbands or cruel in-laws. When a woman was cast out, her community often stepped in, offering food or shelter. This resilience wasn't loud or flashy, it was the steady hum of survival, the kind that kept families and traditions alive through centuries of turmoil. Consider Fen, a mother in the Yuan dynasty. Around 1300, Fen lived in a bustling port city where Mongol rule brought new customs and tensions. Her husband, a fisherman, died in a storm, leaving her with 3 children and no income. The neighbors whispered that she should remarry, but Fen refused, determined to raise her children alone. She took up weaving, her hands moving tirelessly over the loom, the rhythmic clack blending with the cries of gulls outside. Other women in the neighborhood taught her to dye cloth, and soon her vibrant silks were sold in the market. Fen's home became a gathering place, where women shared meals and stories, their voices a chorus of strength. Fen's resilience wasn't just her honor, it was a spark that lit her community, showing how women held each other up when the world tried to pull them down. Women's impact on Chinese culture was profound. Even if history rarely gave them credit, they were the keepers of tradition, weaving myths into lullabies, teaching children Confucian values, and preserving recipes that defined regional cuisines. In wealthy households, some women mastered calligraphy or poetry, their words shaping literary circles. The poet Li Qingzhao from the Song dynasty is a shining example. Her verses, filled with longing and wit, captured the human heart in ways that transcended her time. But even illiterate women, like those in Fen's community, contributed to culture through oral storytelling, their tales of gods and heroes shaping the moral fabric of their villages. These contributions, often unseen, were the heartbeat of Chinese civilization. Let's meet Xu, a storyteller from the Qing dynasty. Around 1700, Xu was a grandmother in a mountain village, her face lined with years of laughter and loss. Each evening, she gathered the children under a banyan tree, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. Her stories of warrior princesses, clever foxes, and star-crossed lovers captivated her audience, their eyes wide in the firelight. Xu's tales weren't just entertainment, they were lessons, teaching courage, loyalty, and kindness. When a drought struck, Xu's stories inspired the village to share their dwindling resources, saving them from collapse. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of centuries, a reminder that women's words could shape not just hearts but destinies. Yet, conflict persisted, especially for women who sought knowledge in a world that valued their silence. Education was a privilege reserved for men, who studied for the imperial exams to become officials. Women, even in elite families, were rarely taught to read or write, as it was seen as unnecessary or dangerous. A literate woman could challenge her husband's authority or question tradition, threatening the social order. Those who pursued learning did so in secret, risking punishment or ridicule. This conflict wasn't just about access to books, it was about the right to think, to dream, to exist beyond the roles assigned to them. Take Jia, a merchant's daughter in the Ming dynasty. Around 1600, Jia's father traded porcelain along the Silk Road, and their home was filled with scrolls and inkstones. While her brothers studied for the exams, Jia was expected to embroider and prepare for marriage. But she was curious, sneaking into her father's study at night, the air sharp with the smell of ink. By candlelight, she taught herself to read, tracing characters with her finger. When her father caught her, he was furious, warning that no man would marry a bookish wife. Jia persisted, hiding her studies, and eventually began writing poetry under a male pseudonym. Her work, circulated in secret, gained praise, though no one knew its true author. Jia's quiet defiance shows how women claimed knowledge, even when the world tried to deny it. As dynasties rose and fell, women faced new challenges, but their resilience led to a quiet resolution. By the late Qing dynasty, in the 1800s, cracks appeared in the Confucian system. Western ideas, brought by missionaries and trade, sparked debates about women's roles. Reformers began to question foot-binding and arranged marriages, and women started to demand education and independence. This shift wasn't sudden, it was the culmination of centuries of small rebellions, from women like Zhu fighting invaders to Jia writing in secret. Their efforts laid the groundwork for change, proving that even the most rigid systems could bend under persistent pressure. Let's meet Wei, a student in the late Qing, around 1890. Wei grew up in a coastal city, where foreign ships brought new ideas. Her father, a progressive scholar, enrolled her in a girls' school, a radical act at the time. The classroom smelled of chalk and sea salt, and Wei devoured books on history and science. But tradition-lingered classmates mocked her as unmarriageable, and her grandmother warned she'd bring shame to the family. Wei ignored them, dreaming of becoming a teacher. When a local official tried to close the school, Wei organized a protest, her voice ringing through the streets. Her courage helped save the school, and she went on to teach dozens of girls, planting seeds of change. Wei's story shows how women, step by step, reshaped their world. The long-term impact of these women is staggering. Their resilience and creativity didn't just sustain families, they shaped China's cultural and social evolution. The poetry, stories, and traditions they preserved became the soul of Chinese identity, influencing everything from literature to moral philosophy. Their quiet defiance paved the way for modern reforms, from the end of foot-binding in the early 20th century to women's rights movements. Today, Chinese women are leaders in business, science, and politics, their achievements built on the foundation of those who came before. The echoes of Mei's, Lumili and Zitha, and Wei's protests resonate in every step forward. Finally, let's meet Yan, a fictional but plausible figure from the early 20th century. Just as the Qing dynasty fell, Yan was a factory worker in Shanghai, her hands stained with dye from weaving modern textiles. The city buzzed with change trams clattered, and newspapers shouted of revolution. Yan had grown up with bound feet, but she unbound them, enduring the pain to walk freely. She joined a women's union, demanding better wages, her voice rising above the factory's hum. The air was thick with coal smoke, but Yan felt alive, part of a new era. Her fight wasn't just for herself, it was for her daughter, who would grow up in a world where women could dream bigger. Yan's story bridges the past and present, a testament to the enduring spirit of Chinese women. Today we see their legacy in every corner of modern China. Women run tech companies, win Nobel Prizes, and shape global culture, their strength rooted in centuries of perseverance. The struggles of imperial women, foot-binding, arranged marriages, silenced voices remind us how far we've come and how much their sacrifices matter. Their stories aren't just history, they're a mirror, reflecting our own capacity to endure and overcome. As you listen tonight, think of Mei, Zhu, Lian, and Yan. There lives a thread in the tapestry of humanity, connecting us across time. So, let's pause and reflect. The women of Imperial China faced a world that tried to define them, yet they defined themselves. They wove silk, fought battles, wrote poetry, and raised generations. Their quiet strength, a force that shaped a civilization. As you drift off, imagine their voices, soft but unyielding, carried on the breeze, whispering of courage and hope. Their lives, so different from ours, still speak to us, reminding us that even in the darkest times, the human spirit shines. Another conflict that shaped the lives of women in Imperial China was the struggle to find a voice in a world that prized their silence. Beyond the duties of marriage and motherhood, many women yearned to express themselves through art, trade, or even defiance, but society often saw such ambitions as disruptive. A woman who spoke too loudly or acted too boldly risked gossip, shame, or worse, as her actions could unsettle the Confucian harmony that held families and communities together. This tension was especially stark in the realm of commerce, where women sometimes found opportunities to wield influence, yet faced scrutiny for stepping into a man's domain. The air might carry the bustle of a market, with the clink of coins and the scent of spices, but for a woman navigating this space, every transaction was a delicate dance between power and propriety. Let's meet Bo, a merchant's widow in the Song dynasty. Around 1150 CE, Bo was 30 when her husband died, leaving her a small stall in a Hangzhou market. The city was alive with energy vendors shouting, silk banners fluttering, the air thick with the aroma of sesame oil and roasted duck. Bo could have sold the stall and remarried, as her in-laws urged, but she saw a chance to thrive. She learned to haggle, her voice firm yet polite, trading porcelain for spices from distant lands. At first, male merchants dismissed her, but Bo's sharp mind and fair deals won their respect. She hired a young apprentice, a girl named Li, teaching her to keep accounts, her ink-stained fingers tracing numbers by lamplight. Yet, success brought suspicion. Neighbors whispered that Bo was too clever, unfit for a proper wife. When a rival tried to sabotage her stall, Bo outwitted him, spreading word of his dishonesty. Her courage wasn't loud, it was steady, like the rhythm of her abacus, proving that women could carve a place in a world not built for them. The world of commerce wasn't the only arena where women faced challenges. Religion offered another complex space for their aspirations. In Imperial China, Buddhism and Taoism provided spiritual paths that sometimes freed women from Confucian constraints, yet these paths came with their own conflicts. Becoming a nun offered escape from marriage or widowhood, but it meant renouncing family ties, a radical act in a society that revered filial piety. The scent of incense and the chant of sutras might fill a temple. But a woman who chose this life walked a tightrope between reverence and rebellion, her spiritual devotion often misunderstood as defiance. Consider Mei Ling, a Taoist nun in the Tang dynasty. Around 800 CE, Mei Ling was 20 when her betrothed died, sparing her a loveless marriage but leaving her future uncertain. Drawn to the quiet of a Taoist temple, she joined her days filled with meditation and brewing herbal elixirs, the air sharp with the tang of ginseng and cedar. She shaved her head, trading silk robes for simple hemp, her choice shocking the family, who saw it as abandoning her duty. Yet, Mei Ling found freedom in the temple's rhythms, her voice rising in chants that echoed through misty hills. She became a healer, tending to villagers, her gentle hands earning their trust. But when a local official accused the nuns of bewitching the community, Mei Ling defended her sisters, her calm words disarming his anger. Her story, inspired by real Taoist women, shows how spirituality offered a refuge, but one that demanded courage to claim. The resilience of women in Imperial China wasn't just individual, it was a collective force, woven through the fabric of their communities. In markets, temples, and villages, women supported each other, sharing knowledge and strength. They gathered to spin silk, their laughter mingling with the hum of looms, or whispered advice during festivals, their voices a soft rebellion against their constraints. This sisterhood was vital in times of crisis, famines, wars, or family disputes when women pooled resources or sheltered each other. Their resilience wasn't about grand gestures. It was the quiet work of mending, teaching, and enduring, a legacy that held society together through centuries of change. Let's meet Hui, a silk worker in the Yuan dynasty, around 1320. Hui was 25. Her fingers nimble from years of threading looms in a Suzhou workshop. The air was heavy with the scent of mulberry leaves and wax, the clack of looms a constant pulse. When a fire destroyed the workshop, leaving Hui and her co-workers jobless, she rallied them. They pooled their savings, renting a small shed to restart, their hands moving in unison to spin silk under flickering oil lamps. Hui's leadership wasn't formal, she led by example, sharing her meals and teaching younger girls her craft. When a merchant tried to underpay them, Hui negotiated fiercely, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Her community thrived, their silks sold across the empire, a testament to the power of women working together, their bond stronger than any thread. Women's contributions to Chinese culture extended beyond the home, shaping art and trade in ways that resonated far beyond their lifetimes. In the Song dynasty, known for its cultural flowering, women's embroidery and painting added depth to China's aesthetic legacy. Their delicate stitches adorned robes worn by emperors, while their market savvy fueled the Silk Road's wealth. These contributions were often uncredited, yet they were the heartbeat of cultural exchange. From the markets of Chang'an to the ports of Chuanzhou, women's voices, though rarely recorded, echoed in the patterns they wove and the goods they traded. Their work a bridge to the wider world. Take Zuyan, an embroiderer in the Song dynasty. Around 1200 CE, Zuyan was 18, her eyes sharp from years of stitching lotus flowers onto silk. Her workshop, filled with the scent of ink and dyed thread, was a haven where she poured her dreams into every needle's pass. Her designs, inspired by the rivers near her village, caught the eye of a traveling merchant who sold them in Persia. Zuyan's fame grew, but when her father demanded she marry, she negotiated to keep her craft, her voice soft but firm. Her embroidery became a language telling stories of freedom she couldn't live, and her workshop a space where other women learned her art. Zuyan's story shows how women's creativity, though often unseen, shaped China's cultural tapestry, their hands weaving beauty into history. Yet another conflict arose when women sought to defy the state itself, a dangerous act in a society where loyalty to the emperor was paramount. Rebellions, though rare, offered women a chance to challenge oppression, but at immense risk. Joining a revolt meant defying not just family but the entire imperial order, with death or exile as likely outcomes. These women, often driven by desperation or ideals, faced a world that punished their boldness, yet their actions sent ripples through history, proving that even the powerless could shake the foundations of power. Consider Lan, a peasant in the Ming dynasty. Around 1450, Lan was 22, her hands rough from harvesting rice in a flood-prone village. The air was thick with the smell of mud and sweat as taxes crushed her family, leaving them starving. When a rebel band rose against the emperor, Lan joined. Driven by hunger and rage, she learned to wield a spear, her strikes fierce in the torchlit battles, the clash of steel ringing in her ears. Lan's courage inspired other women, but when the rebellion failed, she fled, hiding in a forest temple. Her story, though fictional, echoes real women like those in the White Lotus Rebellion, showing how desperation could ignite defiance, their bravery a spark in the dark dot as centuries passed. Women's resilience led to subtle shifts, a quiet climax in their story. By the Qing dynasty, in the 1700s, global trade and ideas began to challenge Confucian norms. Women in coastal cities like Guangzhou encountered foreign traders, their perspectives broadening. Some became merchants, others scholars, their voices growing louder. This wasn't a revolution, but a slow awakening, built on the courage of women who'd defied silence for centuries. Their efforts, whether in markets, temples, or rebellions, laid the groundwork for change, proving that even in a rigid world, women could bend history's arc. Let's meet Qing, a scholar's daughter in the Qing dynasty, around 1750. Qing was 19, her mind sharp from sneaking her father's books. Her room, lit by a single lantern, smelled of ink and jasmine as she wrote essays in secret, her brush dancing across rice paper. When her father discovered her work, he was torn proud but fearful. Qing persuaded him to let her teach her sisters, her voice calm but unyielding. When a local academy rejected her, she shared her writings with traveling poets, her ideas spreading. Qing's quiet rebellion, inspired by women like Ban Zhao, shows how knowledge could be a weapon, wielded softly but with impact. Her words a seed for future change. The collective strength of women in Imperial China wasn't just about survival, it was about creation. They built communities that thrived despite hardship, their hands shaping not just silk or art but the very soul of their culture. In villages, women organized festivals, their laughter rising over drumbeats, preserving traditions. In cities, they ran charities, feeding the poor, their compassion a counterpoint to Confucian rigidity. These acts, often small, were monumental, weaving a network of care that sustained China through wars, famines, and dynastic falls. Their legacy a testament to the power of quiet endurance. Consider Zi, a village elder in the Qing dynasty. Around 1800, Zi was 60, her face etched with years of toil. Her home, fragrant with stewed plums and firewood, was the heart of her community. When a flood swept through, Zi rallied the women, their arms linked as they rebuilt homes, the air thick with mud and hope. She taught girls to sing ancient songs, her voice trembling but strong, keeping their heritage alive. When officials ignored the village's pleas for aid, Zi led a petition, her courage inspiring even the men. Zi's story shows how women's leadership, though rarely celebrated, was the glue of their world, their strength the foundation for generations. Women's cultural impact grew as China opened to the world, their work shaping global perceptions. By the late Qing, women's silk and porcelain reached Europe, their craftsmanship admired in distant courts. Their stories, told through art or trade, carried Chinese values: resilience, beauty, harmony across seas. Women like those in Guangzhou's markets, haggling with British traders, became unwitting ambassadors, their savvy shaping China's image. These contributions, often unrecorded, were vital, their influence a ripple that touched the world, proving that women's work, however humble, could echo far beyond their lives. Let's meet Rong, a porcelain painter in the Qing dynasty, around 1850. Rong was 28, her fingers stained with cobalt blue, her workshop alive with the clink of clay and the scent of glaze. Her vases, adorned with cranes and clouds, were prized by Dutch merchants, her art crossing oceans. When her brother demanded she marry to save the family, Rong refused, her earnings supporting them instead. She trained other women, their brushes, tracing her designs the room a symphony of creativity. When a fire destroyed her kiln, Rong rebuilt, her determination fierce. Her story shows how women's art wasn't just beauty, it was power, their hands shaping China's global legacy. Yet, one final conflict emerged as women faced the clash of tradition and modernity. The late Qing saw Western ideas, education, equality seeping into China, challenging Confucian norms. Women who embraced these ideas risked being called traitors, their loyalty to family and empire questioned. This conflict was a crucible, forcing women to balance respect for the past with hope for a new future. Their choices shaping the twilight of Imperial China and the dawn of a new era. Take Lian, a student in Shanghai. Around 1900, Lian was 17, her classroom filled with a scent of chalk and sea air. She studied English, her mind alight with ideas of freedom, but her grandmother warned she'd shame the family. When a women's school opened, Lian enrolled, her books heavy in her arms, her heart racing with possibility. When classmates mocked her, Lian wrote essays on women's rights, her words sharp yet hopeful. Her courage helped spark a movement, her voice a bridge to a new China. Lian's story, inspired by early feminists, shows how women faced the future. their dreams alight in the fading empire. The resolution of women's struggles in Imperial China wasn't a single moment, but a gradual unfolding. By the early 20th century, foot-binding faded, schools for girls multiplied, and women's voices grew louder. This change was the fruit of centuries of resilience, from Mei's Loom to Lian's essays. Their quiet rebellions, their art, their communities had chipped away at tradition, proving that women could reshape their world, one small act at a time. Their legacy a foundation for modern China's strength. Let's meet Min, a teacher in 1910, as the Qing dynasty crumbled. Min was 30, her classroom a haven of books and sunlight, the air sharp with ink and promise. She'd unbound her feet, embracing the pain for freedom, and taught girls to read. Her voice steady as she shared stories of Wu Zixin and Li Qingzhao. When revolutionaries called for a new China, Min joined, her lessons inspiring her students to dream big. Her school survived the chaos, a beacon for change. Min's story shows how women's resilience bore fruit. Their courage, a spark that lit the future. The long-term impact of these women is immeasurable. Their art, trade, and stories shaped China's identity, their resilience paving the way for modern reforms. From the Silk Road to Shanghai's schools, their work built bridges to the world, their strength echoing in today's leaders and innovators. Their lives marked by struggle, creativity, and community remind us that history isn't just emperors or wars. It's the people who weave, fight, and dream, their hands crafting a legacy that endures across time. Finally, let's meet Yu, a fictional figure in 1912, as Imperial China fell. Yu was a young seamstress in Beijing, her needles flashing under lantern light, the air thick with thread and hope. She joined a women's cooperative, her earnings supporting her siblings, her laughter mingling with her co-workers' songs. When the Republic dawned, Yu marched for women's rights, her voice rising over the city's din, her heart full of possibility. Her story, a bridge to the modern era, shows how women's resilience carried them forward, their dreams stitching past to present. Today we see their legacy in every corner of China's story. Women lead, create, and inspire, their strength rooted in the courage of those who came before. The struggles of imperial women's silence, sacrifice, defiance remind us how far we've come. There lives a mirror to our own resilience. As you listen tonight, think of Bo, Mei Ling, Hui, and Yu, their hands shaping a world that still resonates, their voices whispering across centuries. So, let's pause and reflect. The women of Imperial China were weavers, rebels, and dreamers, their lives a testament to the human spirit's power. They faced a world that tried to bind them, yet they bound it together with their strength. As you drift off, imagine their story, soft, fierce, enduring, carried on the breeze, whispering of hope and courage. Their world, so distant, still speaks to us, a reminder that even in the darkest times, we can leave a mark. If you loved this journey, subscribe. If you liked the video, your support means the world. Until next time, sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with the echoes of the past. One of the lesser-known struggles for women in Imperial China was their quest to heal, both body and spirit, in a society that limited their roles. Medicine was a revered art, dominated by male physicians, yet women often served as midwives, herbalists, and caretakers, their knowledge passed down through whispers and hands-on practice. To step into this role was to risk suspicion. Accusations of witchcraft or impropriety could ruin a woman's reputation. The air might be thick with the bitter tang of boiled herbs or the soft crackle of a hearth, but for a woman healer, every remedy was a gamble, balancing community trust against societal scorn. This conflict wasn't just about healing others. It was about claiming a space to exist as a source of wisdom in a world that preferred women silent. Let's meet Xu Fen, a midwife in the Han Dynasty. Around 50 CE, Xu Fen was 30, her hands steady from years of delivering babies in a riverside village. Her home, a modest hut, smelled of dried lotus and charcoal, its walls lined with jars of herbs she'd gathered from the hills. Each birth was a ritual, soft chants, warm cloths, the sharp cry of a newborn cutting through the night. Xu Fen's skills saved countless lives, but when a wealthy family's child died, they blamed her, calling her a sorceress. The village rallied to her defense, but Xu Fen faced a choice: retreat or persist. She chose to teach other women her craft, her voice calm as she showed them how to soothe fevers. When a plague struck, her remedies helped the village survive, silencing her critics. Xu Fan's story, inspired by historical healers, shows how women's knowledge, though undervalued, was a lifeline, their hands stitching life back together. The historical context of women's healing roles reveals a paradox. While Confucianism, emphasized women's domestic duties, medical texts like the Huangdi Neijing acknowledged women's expertise in childbirth and herbal lore. In rural areas, where male doctors were scarce, women filled the gap, their remedies blending Taoist alchemy and practical wisdom. Yet their work was rarely formalized, and like men, women couldn't apprentice officially or gain imperial recognition. This exclusion didn't stop them. Across dynasties, from Han to Ming, women developed intricate systems of care, their knowledge encoded in songs or shared in quiet gatherings. These efforts, though unrecorded, were vital. Their impact felt in every life they touched, a testament to their resilience in a world that both needed and dismissed them. Another conflict arose when women ventured into diplomacy, a realm reserved for men yet sometimes opened by necessity. In Imperial China, women occasionally served as envoys or mediators, especially in frontier regions or during dynastic marriages to foreign powers. To act as a diplomat was to navigate a treacherous path. Success could bring honor, but failure, or even perceived overreach, could mean disgrace or death. The scent of sandalwood and the rustle of silk might fill a royal tent, but for a woman in this role, every word was a step on a knife's edge. Her influence, a delicate balance between power and peril. Consider Yulin, a princess in the Temps dynasty. Around 650 CE, Yulin was 22 when she was sent to negotiate peace with a Tibetan king. The journey was grueling, dusty steppes, the sharp bite of mountain air, the clatter of her entourage's horses. Clad in emerald silk, she entered the king's camp, her heart pounding but her face serene. Her poetry, recited by firelight, it softened the king's stance, and her offer of silk and grain sealed the truce. Back in Chang'an, courtiers praised her, but some whispered she'd overstepped her boldness, unfit for a woman. Yulin ignored them, later advising her brother, the emperor, on frontier affairs. Her story, rooted in accounts of Tang princesses, like Wensheng, shows how women wielded soft power, their voices shaping empires despite the risks. The social fabric of Imperial China relied on women's unseen labor, not just in healing or diplomacy but in preserving folklore, a role that gave them cultural power. Women were the storytellers, weaving tales of gods, ghosts, and heroines into lullabies and festival songs. These stories weren't mere entertainments, they shaped moral values and community identity. Yet, this role came with a conflict. A woman who told stories too boldly, especially subversive ones, risked being silenced, her tales seen as a threat to Confucian order. The air might hum with the rhythm of a drum or the scent of rice wine, but for a storyteller, every tale was a delicate act of defiance. Let's meet Sai, a grandmother in the Song dynasty, around 1100 CE. Sai was 60, her voice rich from years of storytelling in her village square. Under a lantern's glow, with the scent of jasmine in the air, she spun tales of the goddess Mazu, protector of sailors, her words painting stormy seas and divine rescues. Children and adults alike gathered, their eyes wide, but when Sai told of a heroine who defied her husband, the elders frowned, warning her to stick to proper tales. Tsi softened her stories but wove subtle lessons of courage, her voice a thread of rebellion. When a flood threatened, her tales inspired the village to unite, saving their homes. Tsai's story shows how women's folklore, though gentle, carried power, their words shaping hearts and histories. Women's contributions to folklore weren't just cultural, they were a form of resistance, preserving traditions against the tide of change. As dynasties shifted and foreign influences, like Buddhism or, later, Western trade into China, women's stories kept ancient myths alive, blending them with new ideas. In the Temps, women's tales of Guanyan, the goddess of mercy, merged Buddhist compassion with Chinese values. In the Qing, market songs carried veiled critiques of corrupt officials. These stories, sung in courtyards or whispered at looms, were a quiet rebellion, their rhythms a heartbeat that sustained China's soul through centuries of upheaval. Another conflict emerged when women resisted foreign influence, a growing challenge as China opened to the world. From the Mongol invasions of the Yuan dynasty to Western traders in the Qing, foreign powers brought new customs that clashed with Confucian norms. Women who engaged with these outsiders through trade, marriage, or defiance risked being labeled traitors, their loyalty questioned, yet many saw opportunity in these encounters, using them to gain knowledge or protect their communities. The air might carry the strange scent of foreign spices or the clink of silver coins, but for a woman navigating this space, every choice was a gamble, her actions a bridge between worlds. Take Zhen, a trader's wife in the Yuan dynasty. Around 1280, Zhen was 27, her market stall in Daidu bustling with Mongol and Persian merchants. The air was sharp with saffron and sweat as she bartered silk for glass beads, her quick wit earning her profit. She learned a few Mongol phrases, her voice halting but warm, building trust with her clients. But villagers called her disloyal, saying she'd sold her soul to foreigners. When a Mongol official demanded her goods without pay, Zhen refused, hiding her stock and rallying other women to resist. Her defiance cost her customers, but it won her respect, her stall a symbol of resilience. Chen's story, inspired by Yuan market women, shows how women navigated foreign tides. Their courage a quiet stand for their world as the Qing dynasty faced growing Western pressure. Women's roles evolved, marking a new climax in their story. By the 1800s, missionaries and traders brought schools and ideas of equality, challenging Confucian norms. Women who embraced these learning to read, rejecting foot-binding faced backlash, yet their actions sparked change. This wasn't a sudden revolution but a crescendo, built on centuries of women's resilience, from healers like Shu Fen to storytellers like Tsi. Their efforts weaving a new path for China's future. Let's meet Wei Yin, a student in Guangzhou. Around 1830, Wei Yin was 18, her classroom filled with the scent of ink and magnolia. She studied English with missionary teachers, her mind alight with ideas of freedom. But her father warned she'd shame the family. When a local official banned the school, Wei Yin hid books under her floorboards, teaching her cousins by candlelight. Her voice soft but firm, her lessons spread, inspiring other girls, and when the school reopened, Wei Yin joined its faculty. Her story, rooted in early Qing reformers, shows how women embraced change, their courage a spark that lit the way forward. The collective resilience of women in Imperial China was a force that transcended dynasties. They built networks of care, sharing food in famines, teaching skills in workshops, comforting each other in loss. These bonds were strongest in crisis, when women's quiet strength held communities together. In villages, they organized relief after floods, their hands muddy but steady. In cities, they ran orphanages, their compassion defying hardship. This resilience wasn't loud, it was the soft hum of survival, the kind that kept China's heart beating through centuries of change. Consider Lan Fang, a seamstress in the Ming dynasty. Around 1550, Lan Fang was 40, her fingers worn from stitching robes in a Nanjing workshop. The air was thick with thread and sesame oil as she worked, her laughter lifting her co-workers' spirits. When a plague swept through, killing many, Lan Fang organized the women to sew masks, their needles flashing by lamplight. She shed her meager rice, her home a refuge for the sick. When officials ignored their pleas, Lan Fang led a quiet protest, her voice steady as she demanded aid. Her efforts saved lives, her workshop a beacon of hope. Lan Fang's story shows how women's bonds, though humble, were mighty. Their care a foundation for survival. Women's cultural impact deepened as China's global ties grew, their work shaping not just art but identity. In the Qing, women's embroidery adorned trade goods, their patterns carrying Chinese stories to Europe. Their market songs, sharp with wit, critiqued social ills, their voices a subtle rebellion. These contributions, often overlooked, were vital, weaving China's cultural threads into the world's tapestry. Their influence a legacy that stretched from silk markets to foreign courts. Let's meet Zhu, a singer in the Qing dynasty. Around 1870, Zhu Mei was 25, her voice soaring in a Fuzhou tea house, the air rich with oolong and jasmine. Her songs, blending folklore and satire, drew crowds, but when she mocked a corrupt official, he banned her performances. Zhu Mei sang in secret, her melodies carried by dock workers to distant ports. She trained other women, their voices a chorus of defiance, their songs preserving China's spirit. When the ban lifted, Zhu Mei's fame grew, her music a bridge to the world. Her story shows how women's art, though soft, carried power, their voices echoing across seas. Yet, a final conflict arose as women faced the collapse of the old order. The Qing's fall in 1912 brought revolution, but also chaos, as new ideals clashed with tradition. Women who joined the fight for education, rights, or democracy risked being called radicals, their actions threatening family honor. This conflict was a crucible, forcing women to choose between safety and change. Their courage shaping China's rebirth in a modern world. Take Shuang, a revolutionary in 1911. Shuang was 20, her hands stained with ink from printing pamphlets. In Beijing, the air was thick with coal, smoke, and hope as she rallied women to join the Republic's cause, her voice rising over the city's din. Her family disowned her, but Shuang persisted, hiding in alleys to distribute her work, her heart racing with purpose. When soldiers raided her press, she escaped, her words already spreading. Shuang's story, inspired by women like Qing, shows how women fought for a new China. Their courage a spark in the revolution's fire. The resolution of women's struggles came not as a single victory, but as a quiet dawn. The end of Imperial China brought schools, voting rights, and the end of foot-binding, fruits of centuries of resilience. Women like Bo, Wei Yin, and Shuang had paved the way, their small acts of defiance building a new world. Their legacy wasn't just change, it was proof that women's strength, however soft, could move mountains, their lives a testament to the power of endurance. Let's meet Ting, a teacher in 1915, in the New Republic. Ting was 35, her classroom alive with the scent of chalk and sunlight, her voice warm as she taught girls history. She'd fought to unbind her feet, embracing pain for freedom, and shared stories of empresses and poets, her lessons igniting dreams. When warlords threatened her school, Ting rallied her students, their march a quiet stand for education. Her school thrived, a beacon for the future. Ting's story shows how women's resilience bore fruit, their courage a light in a new era. Long-term impact of these women is woven into China's modern soul. Their art, stories, and rebellions shaped a nation that now leads in innovation and culture. From silk markets to revolutionary presses, their work built bridges to the world. Their strength inspiring today's leaders. Their lives marked by sacrifice, creativity, and defiance remind us that history is made by those who endure. Their hands crafting a legacy that echoes across time. Finally, let's meet Lina, a fictional figure in 1920, as China rebuilt. Lena was a young writer in Shanghai, her desk cluttered with ink and paper, the air sharp with coffee and city dust. Her essays, published in women's journals, called for equality, her words sharp yet hopeful. She'd joined a cooperative, teaching girls to write, their voices rising over the city's hum. When censors banned her work, Lena wrote under a pseudonym, her stories reaching the world. Her story, A Bridge to Today, shows how women's resilience carried them forward, their dreams stitching past to present. Today, we see their legacy in every bold voice in China. Women lead, create, and dream, their strength rooted in the courage of those who came before. The struggles of imperial women's islands, sacrifice, rebellion mirror our own, reminding us that resilience is timeless. As you listen tonight, think of Shufin, Zulan, Zulan, Ziolan, their hands shaping a world that still resonates, their voices a whisper of hope across centuries. Let's pause and reflect. The women of imperial China were healers, storytellers, rebels, and dreamers. Their lives proof that even in the darkest times, the human spirit shines. They faced a world that tried to bind them, yet they wove it together with their strength. As you drift off, imagine their stories soft, fierce, enduring, carried on the wind, whispering of courage and possibility. Their world, so distant, still speaks to us, a reminder that we, too, can leave a mark. If you loved this journey, subscribe if you liked the video. Your support means everything. Until next time, sleep well, and may your dreams be filled with the echoes of the past. One of the enduring conflicts for women in imperial China was their struggle to find purpose in the grueling labor of agriculture. A backbone of the empire, yet a realm where their contributions were often invisible. Women in rural areas toiled, alongside men, planting rice or harvesting millet, their hands caked with mud under the relentless sun, yet their work was rarely acknowledged, and their dreams of rest, recognition, or a different life clashed with the expectation to toil, without complaint. To seek more was to risk scorn, as a woman's duty was tied to family survival, not personal ambition. The air might be thick with the scent of wet earth and straw, but for a woman in the fields, every step was a balance between endurance and the quiet hope for something beyond. Let's meet Chen, a farmer's daughter in the Han Dynasty. Around 100 CE, Chen was 19, her back bent from years of planting rice in a Gangsu village. The fields stretched endlessly, the air sharp with dew and the croak of frogs at dawn. Each day she waded through muddy water, her fingers sore from pushing seedlings into the earth, her mother's voice urging her to work faster. Chen dreamed of learning to read, inspired by a traveling scholar's tales. But her father laughed, saying fields, not books, were her fate. When a drought withered the crops, Chen devised a way to divert stream water, her plan saving the harvest. Villagers praised her, but her father still saw only her labor, not her mind. Chen taught her younger sister to dream bigger, her quiet lessons a rebellion against the field's weight. Her story, rooted in the lives of rural women, shows how their toil fueled China, their resilience a hidden spark in the empire's heart. The historical context of women's agricultural labor reveals their critical role in a society that revered scholars over farmers. From the Han to the Qing, women made up half the rural workforce, their hands ensuring food for cities and armies. Texts like the non-Shu detailed farming techniques, but ignored women's innovations or irrigation tricks, crop rotation, or seed selection passed down through generations. In times of famine, women's knowledge of wild plants or preservation methods saved lives, yet they remained unsung. Their labor was a silent engine, driving China's prosperity while their own dreams were buried in the soil, their strength, a testament to their uncelebrated endurance. Another conflict arose when women sought expression through music, an art form that offered beauty but also danger. Music was cherished in imperial China, from court performances to village festivals, yet women musicians faced scrutiny. A woman who played or sang too boldly risked being called improper, her talent seen as a lure rather than a gift to pursue. Music was to navigate a world that admired her skill but judged her character, her every note a delicate rebellion against silence. The air might carry the soft pluck of a pipa or the hum of a bamboo flute, but for a woman musician, each performance was a step into a spotlight that could warm or burn. Consider Li Anyu, a pipa player in the Tang dynasty. Around 720 CE, Li was 23, her fingers dancing over the strings in a Chang'an tea house, the air fragrant with osmanthus and wine. Her music wove tales of love and loss, drawing sighs from merchants and poets alike. She'd learned from her mother, a former courtesan, and dreamed of performing for the emperor. But when a nobleman offered patronage with strings attached, Li Anyu refused, her voice firm despite her trembling hands. Gossip spread, calling her ungrateful, but she played on, teaching girls in secret, her melodies a quiet defiance. When a festival invited her to perform, her music silenced her critics, her notes soaring over the city. Li Anyu's story, inspired by Tang musicians, shows how women's art, though fragile, carried power. Their songs a voice in a world that sought to mute them. The social fabric of imperial China was strengthened by women's musical contributions, which went beyond entertainment to shape culture. In the Tang, women's performances in tea houses and courts set trends, their melodies influencing poetry and dance. In rural areas, women's folk songs preserved local histories, their voices carrying tales of harvests and heroes. These contributions, often dismissed as frivolous, were vital, weaving emotional and cultural threads that bound communities. Yet, women musicians walked a tightrope, their talent a gift that could elevate or endanger, their resilience a melody that lingered through centuries. Another conflict emerged when women engaged in espionage, a shadowy role that offered influence but courted death. In times of war or court intrigue, women concubines, maids, or merchants sometimes served as spies, their access to private spaces making them ideal agents. To spy was to betray trust, risking execution if caught. Yet many women took the gamble, driven by loyalty, revenge, or survival. The air might be heavy with the scent of ink and secrecy, but for a woman spy, every whisper was a thread in a dangerous web, her courage a flicker in the empire's shadows. Let's meet Feng, a maid in the Ming dynasty. Around 1420, Feng was 21. Serving in a Beijing official's household, the air thick with wax and polished wood, her quiet demeanor hid a sharp mind. She noticed letters left on desks, conversations behind screens. When rebels approached the city, a general recruited her to pass messages, her small frame slipping unnoticed through markets. Feng memorized troop movements, her heart racing as she whispered codes to a contact, the clink of teacups masking her words. When a guard grew suspicious, Feng played the fool, her laughter disarming him. Her information helped repel the rebels, but she never sought praise, fading back into her role. Feng's story, inspired by historical spies, shows how women's invisibility became their strength, their secrets shaping China's fate. Women's roles in espionage, though rarely recorded, were pivotal in Imperial China's turbulent history. From the Han's palace plots to the Qing's resistance against invaders, women used their positions often underestimated to gather intelligence. Their work, shrouded in secrecy, saved armies and toppled traitors, yet their names were erased. Their courage buried in official records. These women, operating in the margins, proved that power wasn't always loud. Sometimes, it was a whisper, a glance, a note slipped under a door. Their resilience, a silent force that steered history's course. Another conflict arose when women pursued philanthropy, a noble act that clashed with expectations of modesty. In wealthy households, women often organized aid for the poor, funding temples or feeding orphans, yet such public roles drew criticism. A woman who gave too openly risked being called vain, her generosity seen as a bid for attention rather than compassion. To help others was to step into a world that questioned her motives, her every act a balance between heart and reputation. The air might carry the scent of rice porridge or the murmur of prayers, but for a woman philanthropist, each gift was a quiet stand against judgment. Take Mei Xing, a merchant's wife in the Qing dynasty around 1780. Mei Xing was 30, her Guangzhou home fragrant with lotus and sandalwood. Her husband's wealth came from tea, but Mei Xing saw the city's poor, their faces gaunt outside her gates. She opened a kitchen, serving rice to hundreds, her hands stirring pots as steam rose in the dawn. Neighbors praised her, but some called her showy, saying a woman's place was at home. When a flood hit, Mei Xing funded boats to rescue families, her voice steady as she directed aid. Her work saved lives, silencing critics, and her kitchen became a legacy, feeding generations. Mei Xing's story shows how women's compassion, though questioned, was a light in China's darkest moments, their generosity a quiet revolution. The cultural impact of women's philanthropy was profound, shaping China's moral landscape. From the Song's Buddhist charities to the Qing's disaster relief, women's aid efforts fostered community trust, their work softening the edges of a hierarchical society. Their donations built temples, schools, and bridges, their names often unrecorded but their impact undeniable. These acts, rooted in compassion, were a form of power, proving that women could shape society not through force but through care, their resilience a thread that wove China's heart together. Another conflict emerged when women challenged social hierarchies, a bold act in a Confucian world that prized order. Women of lower classes, servants, peasants, or entertainers sometimes defied their status, seeking respect or equality, but such defiance invited punishment. To rise above one's place was to disrupt the empire's harmony, risking exile or worse. Yet, many women took the risk, driven by dignity or desperation. Their actions a spark that challenged the rigid lines of class and gender. The air might be thick with the dust of a servant's broom or the scent of a performer's rouge, but for a woman defying her rank, every step was a rebellion. Let's meet Yanlin, a servant in the Song dynasty. Around 1130, Yanlin was 20, her hands rough from scrubbing floors in a Kaifeng mansion. The house gleamed with lacquer, the air sharp with polish and incense, but Yanlin's life was toil. She overheard her master's poetry lessons, memorizing lines in secret, her mind hungry for more. When a guest mocked her, Yanlin recited a poem, her voice clear, stunning the room. Her master, torn between anger and awe, let her join the lessons. but warned her to stay humble. Yanlin persisted, her words earning her a tutor's role, her defiance lifting her from servitude. Her story shows how women broke through hierarchies, their courage a crack in the empire's rigid walls. As Imperial China neared its end, women's defiance of hierarchies reached a climax, fueled by global changes. The Qing's final decades saw uprisings, like the Taiping Rebellion, where women fought for equality, their voices rising amid chaos. These movements, though crushed, planted seeds of change, proving that women could challenge not just families but empires. Their actions, from Yanlin's poetry to rebel soldiers' cries, showed that resilience could reshape society. Their courage, a beacon in a world on the brink of transformation. Consider Hua, a rebel in the Taiping Rebellion, around 1855. Hua was 24, her hands calloused from wielding a spear in Guangxi. The air was thick with gunpowder and sweat as she fought for a world where women could own land. She'd fled an abusive marriage, her heart set on justice, her voice rallying other women. When troops captured her camp, Hua hid in a cave, her whispered plans keeping the fight alive. Though the rebellion failed, her story inspired later reformers. Her courage, a spark in China's rebirth. Hua's story, rooted in real Taiping women, shows how defiance, though costly, lit the path to change. The collective resilience of women in Imperial China was a tapestry of small acts that wove a stronger society. They shared skills, from farming to storytelling, their hands passing down wisdom like a sacred flame. In crisis, floods, wars, plagues, they led quietly, their compassion and ingenuity saving lives. These networks, built on trust, were China's backbone. Their strength, a quiet force that carried the empire through its darkest days. Their legacy, a reminder of the power of community. Let's meet Bao, a village leader in the Qing dynasty. Around 1890, Bao was 50, her home a hub of laughter and rice wine, the air warm with community. When smallpox struck, she organized women to boil herbs, their pots steaming under starlight, saving dozens. Her voice, soft but firm, rallied the village to rebuild after a fire, her hands guiding younger women. When officials ignored their pleas, Bao led a march, her steps steady despite her age. Her leadership, though humble, was mighty, her community a testament to women's strength. Baoyu's story shows how women's bonds held China together, their care a light in the shadows. Women's cultural contributions, from music to philanthropy, were a bridge to the modern world. As China faced the West, women's art, silk songs, stories carried Chinese identity abroad, their work shaping global views. Their resilience in preserving traditions, even under foreign pressure, ensured China's soul endured their hands, weaving a legacy that stretched from ancient markets to modern cities. Their voice is a chorus that still echoes. Take Jingwen, a silk merchant in 1905. Jingwen was 30, her Shanghai stall vibrant with embroidered bolts, the air sharp with dye and sea salt. Her silks sold to French traders carried stories of China's rivers, her designs a quiet pride. She taught women to weave their looms, a rhythm of defiance against Western dominance. When tariffs threatened her trade, Jingwen smuggled her goods, her courage keeping her business alive. Her story, it shows how women's art was a cultural anchor, their work a thread in China's global tapestry. One of the profound conflicts for women in Imperial China was their struggle to reform education, a realm guarded by men yet essential for change. Education was the gateway to power through the imperial exams. Men rose to govern, but women were largely excluded, their learning deemed unnecessary or dangerous. To teach or learn beyond basic literacy was to challenge Confucian norms, risking accusations of immodesty or rebellion. Yet, some women saw education as a path to freedom, their efforts a quiet revolution against a system that prized their silence. The air might carry the soft scratch of a brush on rice paper or the murmur of recited poems, but for a woman seeking knowledge, every lesson was a daring act, her mind a battlefield where tradition and ambition clashed. Let's meet Shu, a tutor's daughter in the Song dynasty. Around 1080 CE, Shuan was 20, her eyes bright from sneaking her father's books in their Kaifeng home, where the air was sharp with ink and cedar. She memorized Confucian classics, her fingers tracing characters by moonlight, dreaming of teaching others. Her father allowed her to tutor her younger sisters, but when she proposed teaching village girls, he hesitated, fearing gossip. Shu persisted, holding secret classes in a neighbor's courtyard, her voice steady as she taught poetry and arithmetic. When elders discovered her, they called her reckless, but the girls progressed, writing their own verses silenced them. Shuan's lessons spread, her small school a beacon for change. Her story, inspired by Song women's literacy efforts, shows how education was a quiet rebellion, their minds lighting a path through the empire's shadows. The historical context of women's education reveals a slow but seismic shift. In the Song dynasty, economic growth and printing spread literacy, and some elite women learned to read, writing poetry or managing estates. By the Ming and Qing, private tutors for girls grew common, though limited to wealthy families. Women like Ban Zhao, a Han scholar, set early precedents. their texts on virtue ironically empowering later generations to demand more. Yet, barriers remained. Women couldn't take exams or hold office. Their knowledge confined to the home. These restrictions didn't stop them. Women taught in secret, their lessons a ripple that grew into modern schools. Their resilience a testament to the power of ideas. Another conflict arose when women stepped onto the stage, where theater offered a voice but also vulnerability. Chinese opera, with its painted faces and soaring melodies, was a cultural jewel, yet women performers faced harsh judgment. To act was to expose oneself, risking accusations of immorality in a society that valued seclusion. A woman's talent, who could win applause, but her presence on stage invited scorn. Her every performance a balance between art and reputation. The air might be alive with the twang of an erhu or the scent of grease bent, but for a woman actress, each role was a defiance. Her stage a battleground where beauty and bravery met. Consider Zealand, an opera singer in the Ming Dynasty. Around 1580, Zealand was 22. Her voice a cascade of notes in a Nanjing theater, where the air shimmered with incense and lantern light. She played heroines, warriors, lovers, her silk robe swirling as she sang of courage. Orphaned young, she'd joined a troupe, her talent, her only wealth. Audiences adored her, but scholars called her shameless, saying no proper woman belonged on stage. When a patron demanded her company, Zealand refused, her defiance earning her banishment from one theater. She joined another, training girls to sing, her melodies a legacy. When a festival invited her back, her performance stole hearts, proving her worth. Zealand's story shows how women's art, though judged, was aflame, their voices soaring above the empire's constraints. The social role of women in theater was a paradox, celebrated yet stigmatized. In the Ming and Qing, opera troupes grew, and women performers, though rare, became stars, their songs shaping cultural tastes. Their performances preserved folklore, from tales of Mulan to tragic lovers, weaving moral lessons into entertainment. Yet their lives were precarious. Many faced poverty or coercion, their talent a double-edged sword. These women, through their art, challenged norms, their stages a space where they could be bold, their resilience a melody that echoed through China's cultural heart. Another conflict emerged when women advocated for legal rights, a daring act in a system where men wrote the laws. Imperial China's legal code, rooted in Confucianism, favored men. Women couldn't own property independently or seek justice without male intermediaries. To challenge this was to risk punishment, yet some women, driven by injustice, spoke out, using wit or status to bend the system. The air might carry the rustle of scrolls or the scent of sealing wax, but for a woman seeking justice, every plea was a gamble, her courage a spark against the empire's rigid order. Let's meet Rui, a widow in the Qing dynasty, around 1730. Rui was 30, her Nanjing home modest but neat, the air fragrant with chrysanthemum tea. Her husband's death left her with a small shop, but his brother claimed it, citing law. Rui, knowing the code from her father's lessons, petitioned the magistrate, her voice clear as she argued her dowry's rights. The courtroom buzzed, men whispering that she overstepped, but Rui's logic won the case. Her shop restored, she began advising other widows. Her home a quiet court where women learned to navigate the law. When a corrupt official threatened her, Rui outsmarted him, her courage a shield. Rui's story, inspired by Qing legal petitions, shows how women fought for justice, their voices a crack in the empire's walls. Women's legal advocacy, though rare, had ripple effects. In the song, women's dowry rights strengthened, thanks to persistent petitions. In the Qing, widows like Rui used magistrates' courts to reclaim property, their cases setting precedents. These efforts, often small, were revolutionary, proving women could bend the law, their resilience a quiet force that reshaped justice. Their stories a testament to the power of persistence in a world that sought to bind them. Another conflict arose when women took on environmental stewardship, a role born of necessity but fraught with resistance. In rural China, women managed water, forests and crops, their knowledge vital to survival. Yet, their efforts redirecting streams, planting trees were often dismissed, and challenging male-led decisions risked ridicule. To protect the land was to defy a system that saw women as secondary, their every act a balance between care and confrontation. The air might be thick with the scent of pine and river mist, but for a woman steward, each choice was a stand for her community's future. Take Fen Yu, a farmer's wife in the Yuan dynasty. Around 1300, Fen Yu was 28, her hands rough from tending orchards in a Shandong village, where the air hummed with bees and apple blossoms. When logging threatened the forest, drying the village's wells, Fen Yu rallied the women, their voices rising as they planted saplings. Men mocked them, saying trees were men's work, but Fen Yu persisted, her knowledge of soil saving the groves. When a flood loomed, her ditches diverted, water protecting the harvest. Her work became legend, her orchards a legacy. Fen Yu's story shows how women's care for the land, though humble, was mighty. their hands nurturing China's heart. The cultural impact of women's environmental work was profound, shaping China's landscapes and values, from the Han's irrigation systems to the Qing's reforestation. Women's knowledge passed through songs or shared labor sustained agriculture. Their efforts acquired stewardship that fed empires. Their work, often unrecorded, was a form of power, proving women could shape the earth as surely as men shaped laws. Their resilience, a root that anchored China through centuries of change. Another conflict emerged when women navigated dynastic transitions, moments of chaos where their roles could shift dramatically. As empires fell, Han to three kingdoms, Thames to Song, Ming to Qing, women faced upheaval, their loyalties tested, their survival at stake. To adapt was to risk betrayal, yet many seized these moments to redefine their place, their courage a flicker in the empire's twilight. The air might carry the smoke of burning cities or the scent of new ink, but for a woman in transition, every choice was a bridge to a new world. Consider Zuqing, a scribe's daughter in the Tang Song transition. Around 900 CE, Zuqing was 20, her Chang'an home, shaken by war, the air thick with ash and fear. As the Tang collapsed, her family fled, but Zuqing stayed, copying texts for a new warlord, her brush steady, despite her trembling heart. Her work preserved histories, earning her a place in the new Song court, but old Tang loyalists called her a traitor. Zuqing taught other women to write, her lessons a quiet stand for continuity. When peace returned, her scrolls were treasured, her courage a bridge between eras. Zuqing's story shows how women navigated chaos, their hands weaving stability into change. As dynasties shifted, women's resilience reached a climax, their adaptability shaping China's rebirth. In the Qing's early years, women like those in the Manchu court blended Han and Manchu customs, their diplomacy easing tensions, their efforts writing, teaching, mediating stabilized a fractured empire, proving women could be architects of renewal, their strength a quiet force that carried China forward, their legacy a testament to their power in chaos. Let's meet Li Mei, a court lady in the early Qing, around 1650. Li Mei was 25, her Beijing palace fragrant with peonies and wax. Her role to teach Manchu princesses Han poetry. The air buzzed with new rules, but Li Mei's verses, soft yet sharp, bridged cultures, her voice calming rival factions. When a Han rebel threatened the court, Li Mei's coded letters warned the emperor, her courage unseen but vital. Her work helped unify the dynasty, her legacy a school for girls. Li Mei's story shows how women shaped transitions, their wisdom a light in the empire's dawn. The collective resilience of women in Imperial China was a force that transcended time, their bonds a web that held society together. They shared skills, writing, singing, planting their hands, passing wisdom like a sacred flame. In crisis, wars, famines, transitions, they led quietly, their compassion saving lives. These networks, built on trust, were China's strength. Their resilience a quiet power that carried the empire through its darkest days. Their legacy a reminder of the might of community. Consider Yun, a weaver in the Ming dynasty, around 1500. Yun was 40, her Suzhou workshop alive, with a clack of looms and the scent of mulberry silk. When taxes crushed her village, Yun organized women to sell their cloth in secret, their earnings feeding families, their laughter a defiance of hardship. Her voice rallied them to rebuild after a fire, her hands guiding younger weavers. When officials demanded her goods, Yun hid them, her courage a shield. Yun's story shows how women's bonds, though soft, were unbreakable, their care a foundation for China's survival. Women's cultural contributions, from theater to education, were a bridge to the world, their work shaping China's identity. As dynasties traded with Asia and Europe, women's silk songs and stories carried Chinese values abroad, their art a quiet diplomacy. Their resilience in preserving traditions, even under pressure, ensured China's soul endured, their hands weaving a legacy that stretched from ancient courts to modern cities. Their voices a chorus that still echoes. Take Meifang, a poet in the Qing dynasty. Around 1820, Meifang was 30, her Fuzhou study fragrant with ink and sea air, her poems of love and loss published under a male name. Her words reached Japan, their elegance a cultural gift, but her family called her bold, urging silence. Meifang taught women to write, their brushes a chorus of defiance, their verses a legacy. When censors banned her, she wrote in secret, her work surviving. Meifang's story shows how women's art was a cultural anchor, their voices carrying China's heart across borders. One of the subtle yet profound conflicts for women in Imperial China was their pursuit of knowledge in astronomy, a field revered for its connection to the emperor's mandate from heaven but tightly controlled by male scholars. Women who studied the stars risked being seen as overreaching, their curiosity a challenge to the male-dominated order of the cosmos. To gaze upward, charting constellations or predicting eclipses, was to claim a place in a realm reserved for men, their every observation a quiet rebellion against a society that preferred them earthbound. The air might be crisp with the chill of a starry night, the faint creak of a bamboo ladder underfoot, But for a woman stargazer, each glance at the heavens was a step into forbidden territory, her mind a map of courage. Let's meet Xing, a scholar's sister in the Tang dynasty. Around 730 CE, Xing Yu was 21. Her nights spent on her family's rooftop in Luoyang, where the air was cool and the stars blazed like scattered pearls. Her brother, an imperial astronomer, left charts strewn about, and Xing Yu studied them in secret, her fingers tracing Orion's belt by lantern light. She dreamed of mapping the heavens, but her father warned that such work was for men, her role to marry and manage a home. When her brother fell ill before an eclipse, Xing Yu calculated its timing, her predictions flawless. She shared them anonymously, her work saving the court's rituals. Though praised, she faced whispers of impropriety, yet she taught her nieces to read the stars, her lessons a constellation of defiance. Xing Yu's story, inspired by Tang astronomical records, shows how women reached for the heavens, their minds illuminating a world that sought to dim them. The historical context of women's astronomical pursuits reveals a hidden legacy in the Tang and Song dynasties, when astronomy was vital for calendars and omens. Women in scholarly families sometimes accessed star charts, their observations aiding imperial predictions. Figures like Empress Wu supported observatories, indirectly empowering women to learn, yet their contributions were rarely credited. Male scribes recorded the data, erasing women's names. Despite this, women's knowledge, shared in private, helped refine calendars and navigation. Their work a silent pulse in China's scientific heart. Their resilience, charting stars in the shadows, was a testament to their unquenched curiosity. Their gaze a bridge to the cosmos. Another conflict arose when women pursued calligraphy, an art form that blended beauty and intellect but was dominated by men. Calligraphy was more than writing, it was a path to prestige, its strokes a reflection of character. For a woman to wield a brush was to risk being called frivolous or defiant, her talent a challenge to male authority. To create art that rivaled men's was to step into a world that admired her skill but questioned her place. Each character a delicate act of courage. The air might carry the sharp scent of ink and the soft rustle of paper, but for a woman calligrapher, every stroke was a declaration, her art a canvas for her spirit. Consider Lang, a poet's daughter in the Song dynasty. Around 1120 CE, Lang was 19. Her Hanzhou study a haven of inkstones and bamboo brushes, the air rich with pine and wax. She learned calligraphy from her father's scrolls, her strokes bold yet graceful, capturing the flow of rivers in her characters. She dreamed of joining a scholars' guild, but her mother warned that women's art should stay private. When art, a local contest, invited entries, Lang submitted her work under a male name, her piece winning praise. Revealed as a woman, she faced scorn, but a poet mentored her, and she began teaching girls. Her brush a beacon, her art adorned temples, her name whispered in literary circles. Lanky's story shows how women's calligraphy, though judged, was a voice, their strokes etching their place in China's soul. The social role of women in calligraphy was a quiet revolution. In the Song and Ming dynasties, women's literacy grew, and some, like Lanky, mastered calligraphy. Their works, gracing homes and temples, their art, often shared in women's circles, fostered intellectual communities, their brushes weaving bonds of creativity. Yet, their talent was a double-edged sword, admired but confined, their public displays rare. These women, through their art, challenged norms, their strokes a language of defiance, their resilience a thread that wove beauty into China's cultural tapestry, their work a legacy that endured beyond their lives. Another conflict emerged when women shaped culinary arts, a domain of daily life where their creativity thrived but was rarely celebrated. Cooking was women's work, yet its mastery blending flavors, preserving traditions was undervalued, seen as mundane. To elevate cuisine, creating dishes that rivaled imperial feasts, was to seek recognition in a world that dismissed their skill. Their every recipe a quiet assertion of worth. The air might be thick with the aroma of ginger and soy or the sizzle of a wok, but for a woman cook each dish was a canvas, her kitchen a stage for her artistry. Let's meet Wei Ling, a cook in the Yuan dynasty around 1270. Wei Ling was her Beijing kitchen, a symphony of steaming buns and roasting duck, the air sharp with garlic and star anise. She'd learned from her grandmother, whose recipes fed their alleys poor. Wei Ling dreamed of cooking for a noble's banquet, but her father said kitchens were no place for ambition. When a merchant tasted her dumplings, he hired her for a feast, her flavors sweet, sour, savourous, stunning guests. Critics called her bold, unfit for a woman, but Wei Ling opened a stall, teaching women her craft, her dishes a legacy, her food fed markets, her name a whisper of pride. Wei Ling's story shows how women's culinary art, though humble, was power, their flavors, a taste of their spirit. Women's culinary contributions were a cultural cornerstone, shaping China's identity, from the Tang's noodle soups to the Qing's dim sum. Women's recipes defined regional cuisines, their kitchens a crucible of tradition. Their work, shared in families or markets, preserved heritage, their flavors a language of love and survival. Yet, their skill was rarely recorded, their names lost to history. These women, through their cooking, wove communities together. Their resilience, a spice that flavored China's soul. Their dishes, a legacy that fed generations. Another conflict arose when women led grassroots resistance, defying local tyrants or corrupt officials. In a society where obedience was paramount, such acts were treasonous, risking death or exile. Yet, women, driven by injustices, forced labor, or land seizures organized in secret, their defiance a spark in the empire's underbelly. The air might carry the dust of a village path or the scent of burning straw. But for a woman rebel, every plan was a pulse of courage, her actions a stand for her people's dignity. Take Shuho, a peasant in the Ming dynasty, around 1470. Shuho was 23. Her hands rough from harvesting wheat in a Hunan village, the air thick with chaff and sweat. When a landlord raised rents, starving families, Shuhua rallied. The women, their whispers hidden in the fields, they sabotaged the landlord's stores, slipping grain to the poor, their footsteps silent in the moonlight. Shuhua's voice, soft but fierce, led them, but when guards caught her, she faced execution. She escaped, hiding in a temple, her rebellion inspiring others. Her story, inspired by Ming uprisings, shows how women's defiance, though dangerous, was a flame. Their courage, a spark that lit the path to justice. Women's grassroots resistance, though rarely chronicled, was a force that shaped China's history, from the Song's tax revolts to the Qing's anti-corruption protests. Women's actions hiding rebels, spreading word, or leading march weakened tyrants, their courage a ripple that stirred change. Their work, often erased, was vital, proving women could challenge power. Their resilience, a quiet storm that reshaped communities. Their stories a testament to the strength of the unheard. Another conflict emerged when women preserved family lineage, a sacred duty that carried heavy burdens. In Confucian China, lineage was everything, and women were expected to bear sons to continue it, their worth tied to this role. To fail or to redefine lineage through adoption or legacy was to risk shame, yet many women found ways to ensure their family's name endured. Their efforts a quiet rebellion against rigid norms. The air might be warm with the scent of ancestral tablets or the murmur of prayers, but for a woman guarding her line, each act was a stand for her family's future. Consider Jiayan, a widow in the Qing dynasty, around 1790. Jiayan was 32. Her shanding home a shrine to her husband's ancestors, the air heavy with incense and wax. Childless, she faced pressure to remarry, but Jiayan adopted her nephew, raising him as her son, her voice firm as she taught him family rights. Neighbors called her bold, saying only men could choose heirs. But Jiayan's care ensured the lineage thrived, her nephew becoming a scholar. When a cousin challenged her, she defended her choice in court, her courage winning. Jiayan's story shows how women preserved lineage, their love a thread that wove families together. Their resilience an anchor in China's heart. The impact of women's role in lineage was profound, shaping China's social structure. From the Han's ancestral worship to the Qing's clan records, women's work bearing, raising or adopting heirs sustained families, their efforts a foundation for Confucian order. Their choices, often quiet, were powerful, ensuring continuity. Their resilience, a root that held China's traditions firm. Their legacy a testament to the strength of love in a world of duty. Another conflict arose when women navigated foreign wars, a chaotic arena where their roles could shift dramatically. From Mongol invasions to Western conflicts, wars brought danger but also opportunity. Women served as nurses, spies, or mediators, their actions pivotal yet perilous. To engage was to risk being called disloyal, their every move a balance between survival and honor. The air might carry the smoke of battle or the scent of medicinal herbs, but for a woman in war, each choice was a thread in a tapestry of chaos. Her courage a flicker in the empire's storm. Take Maison, a nurse in the Song dynasty, around 1127. Maison was 20. Her hands steady as she tended wounded soldiers in a Jin-invaded city, the air thick with blood and camphor. She'd learned herbs from her mother, her bandages saving lives, but the enemy's advance threatened her. Camp, Maison smuggled supplies, her steps silent in the snow, her heart racing as she aided rebels. When captured, she feigned ignorance, her calm disarming her captors, and escaped to continue her work. Her story, inspired by Song resistance, shows how women's courage in war, though unseen, was vital. Their hands healing a fractured empire. As wars and invasions shook China, women's resilience reached a climax, their adaptability a beacon in chaos. In the Qing's Opium Wars, women like those in Canton's markets hid rebels, their stalls a front for resistance. Their efforts nursing, spying, or rallying helped China endure, proving women could be warriors in their own way. Their strength, a quiet force that carried the empire through its trials. Their legacy a spark that lit the path to survival. Let's meet Ting Yu, a merchant in the Qing dynasty. Around 1840, Ting Yu was 27. Her Canton stole fragrant with tea and spice, her voice sharp as she bartered with British traders. When the Opium War erupted, she hid rebels in her warehouse, her calm masking her fear. the air thick with salt and gunpowder. Her information on enemy ships aided the resistance. But when soldiers searched her stall, she distracted them with tea, her smile a shield. Her work helped save her city, her courage a legacy. Tinyo's story shows how women's resilience in war, though soft, was mighty, their hands weaving hope into chaos. The collective resilience of women in Imperial China was a force that bound communities across centuries. They shared wisdom, cooking, healing, resisting their hands, a bridge between generations. In crisis wars, floods, invasions, they led quietly, their compassion saving lives. These networks, built on trust, were China's strength. Their resilience a quiet power that carried the empire through its darkest days. Their legacy a reminder of the might of unity. Consider Lan Zu, a healer in the Ming dynasty, around 1530. Lan Zu was 45, her Fujian home a haven of herbs and warmth, the air rich with mint and firewood. When pirates raided her coast, she organized women to tend the wounded, their bandages a lifeline, their voices calming the fearful. Her remedies saved dozens, her leadership rallying the village to rebuild, her hands guiding younger healers. When officials ignored their pleas, Lan Zu led a petition, her courage a beacon. Lan Zu's story shows how women's bonds, though humble, were unbreakable, their care a foundation for China's survival. Women's cultural contributions, from calligraphy to cuisine, were a bridge to the world, their work shaping China's identity as trade grew. Their art, silk poems, dishes carried Chinese values abroad, their resilience ensuring traditions endured. Their hands wove a legacy that stretched from ancient markets to modern cities, their voices a chorus that still echoes. Their work a testament to the power of creativity in a world of constraint. Take Qinglan, a chef in the Qing dynasty. Around 1880, Qinglan was 30, her Shanghai kitchen alive with the sizzle of noodles and the scent of scallions, her dishes a draw for foreign traders. Her recipes, blending Han and Cantonese flavors, were a cultural gift, but her family called her bold, urging modesty. Qinglan taught women to cook, their walks a rhythm of defiance, their flavors a legacy. When taxes threatened her stall, she smuggled ingredients, her courage keeping her art alive. Qinglan's story shows how women's cuisine was a cultural anchor, their flavors carrying China's heart across seas. One of the enduring conflicts for women in Imperial China was their struggle to innovate in textile production. A cornerstone of the empire's economy, yet a realm where their contributions were often overlooked. Textiles, silk, cotton, hemp, China's lifeblood, traded across the Silk Road. But women's innovations in weaving or dyeing were rarely credited, their skill dismissed as mere labor. To push boundaries, creating new patterns or techniques, was to risk being seen as presumptuous, their ambition clashing with expectations of humility. The air might be thick with the scent of mulberry leaves and wax, the rhythmic clack of looms a constant pulse. But for a woman weaver, each thread was a quiet act of defiance, her craft a canvas for her ingenuity. Let's meet Lin Hua, a weaver. In the Song dynasty, around 1050 CE, Lin Hua was 24, her hands nimble from years at a Suzhou loom, where the air shimmered with silk dust and a Thames of indigo dye. She'd learned from her aunt, who wove intricate cloud patterns, and dreamed of creating designs that rivaled imperial robes. Lin Hua experimented with double weaving, her threads blending colors into shimmering landscapes, but her father warned that such boldness was unfit for a woman. When a merchant saw her work, he bought it for a noble's court, but credited her brother. Lin Hua persisted, teaching women her technique, her loom a quiet rebellion. Her designs reached markets in Persia, her name whispered among traders. Lin Hua's story, inspired by Song textile advances, shows how women's innovation, though uncelebrated, wove China's wealth, their hands threading brilliance into history. The historical context of women's textile work reveals their vital role in China's global influence, from the Han silk trade to the Song's cotton innovations. Women's hands drove the empire's economy, their looms producing goods that dazzled emperors and foreign kings. Archaeological find spindles, dye vats show their skill, yet records rarely name them, crediting men instead. Their innovations like brocade or resist dyeing set global standards, their work a silent engine of prosperity. These women, through their craft, defied obscurity, their resilience a thread that wove China's legacy, their ingenuity a spark that lit the Silk Road. Another conflict arose when women sought leadership in religious communities, a role that offered spiritual authority but invited scrutiny. In Buddhist and Taoist temples, women could become nuns or priestesses, leading rituals or teaching devotees, yet such roles challenged Confucian norms of submission. To lead was to risk accusations. With arrogance, their authority seen as a threat to male-dominated hierarchies. The air might carry the scent of sandalwood incense or the soft chant of sutras, but for a woman leader, each prayer was a balance between faith and defiance, her voice a beacon in a world that preferred her silent. Consider Meifen, a Buddhist nun in the Tang dynasty, around 770 CE. Meifen was 28, her temple in Xi'an, a haven of lotus candles and polished stone, the air heavy with myrrh, She'd joined after escaping a forced marriage, her shaved head a symbol of freedom. Mei Fen led meditations, her voice guiding monks and nuns. But local officials called her presumptuous, saying women shouldn't lead. When a drought struck, she organized alms for the poor, her compassion winning hearts. Critics tried to close her temple, but Mei Fen's sermons, soft yet unyielding, rallied devotees, saving it. Her story, inspired by Thames Buddhist women, shows how spiritual leadership was a quiet revolution, their faith a light that pierced the empire's shadows. The social role of women in religious leadership was a quiet force, shaping China's spiritual landscape. In the Thames, women like Mei Fen led temples, their teachings blending Buddhism with local beliefs, fostering compassion. In the Song, women's donations built shrines, their influence felt in every prayer. Yet their authority was fragile. Male monks often reclaimed power, dismissing women's roles. These women, through their faith, defied constraints. Their resilience a chant that echoed through China's temples. Their leadership a testament to the power of belief in a world of doubt. Another conflict emerged when women entered cross-marriages, a delicate bridge between China and foreign powers. Dynastic alliances like those with Mongols or Tibetans often required women to marry foreign rulers, their lives a diplomatic dance. To leave their homeland was to risk isolation, their loyalty questioned by both sides, yet many embraced the role, using their influence to foster peace. The air might be sharp with the dust of steppes or the scent of foreign spices, but for a woman in such a marriage, each step was a negotiation, her heart a bridge between worlds. Let's meet Chen Yi, a princess in the Tang dynasty. Around 608 CE, Chen Yi was 19, sent to marry a Uyghur Khan, her caravan winding through deserts, the air dry with sand and camel musk. Clad in crimson silk, she entered the Khan's camp, her heart racing but her smile serene. Her poetry, recited by firelight, charmed the court, easing tensions, her gifts of silk sealing peace. Back in Chang'an, courtiers called her a pawn, but Chunye learned Uyghur customs, advising her husband on trade. Her letters home, scented with rosewater, shaped Thames policy, her courage a quiet diplomacy. Chinese story, inspired by Princess Wenchang, shows how women bridged cultures, their grace a thread that wove peace. Women's roles in cross-cultural marriages were pivotal, shaping China's diplomacy. From the Han's alliances with Zhongnu to the Qing's Manchunian unions, women's marriages eased conflicts, their adaptability fostering trade and stability. Their lives, often lonely, were diplomatic triumphs. Their influence felt in every treaty. These women, through their courage, defied isolation, their resilience, a bridge that linked empires. Their stories a testament to the power of connection in a divided world. Another conflict arose when women hosted intellectual salons, spaces of ideas that challenged Confucian restraint. In elite homes, women gathered to discuss poetry, philosophy, or politics, their minds alight with possibility. Yet such gatherings were seen as subversive, risking accusations of impropriety or sedition. To host a salon was to create a space where women could think freely, but each word was a gamble, their voices a spark in a world that preferred them quiet. The air might be rich with ink and plum blossoms, but for a woman intellectual, each debate was a delicate rebellion. Take Xu Ling, a scholar's wife in the Ming dynasty. Around 1590, Xu Ling was 30. Her Nanjing courtyard a haven of lanterns and scrolls, the air warm with tea and jasmine. She invited women poets, their verses sharp with wit. But her husband warned that such gatherings drew suspicion. Xu Ling persisted, her voice guiding discussions on love and justice, her salon a refuge for minds. When a magistrate banned women's meetings, she disguised them as tea parties, her laughter masking her defiance. Her ideas spread, influencing male scholars, her salon a legacy. Xu Ling's story shows how women's intellect, though hidden, was aflame, their minds lighting China's cultural heart. Women's intellectual salons were a quiet revolution, shaping China's literary and philosophical landscape. In the Song and Ming, women like Xu Ling fostered poetry circles, their ideas influencing classics like The Dream of the Red Chamber. Their salons, though small, were crucibles of thought, blending Confucian ethics with Buddhist and Taoist ideas. Yet their influence was fragile, often erased by male chroniclers. These women, through their minds, defied silence, their resilience, a spark that ignited China's intellect. Their legacy a testament to the power of ideas. Another conflict emerged when women resisted censorship, a dangerous act in a society where the emperor's word was law. Writing or speaking against the state, whether through poetry, pamphlets, or songs, risked imprisonment or death. Yet women, driven by truth, took the risk, their voices a whisper of defiance. The air might carry the scent of ink or the rustle of hidden scrolls, but for a woman resisting censorship, each word was a rebellion, her courage a light in the empire's shadows. Consider Yan Mei, a poet in the Qing dynasty. Around 1800, Yan Mei was 25. Her Guangzhou study a sanctuary of ink and candlelight, the air sharp with wax and sea air. Her poems, critiquing corrupt officials, were shared in secret, her words, sharp yet veiled. When censors banned her work, Yan Mei wrote under a pseudonym, her scrolls smuggled by traders, her voice reaching villages. Her family urged silence, but she taught women to write, their pens a chorus of resistance. When arrested, her calm defiance swayed the magistrate, sparing her. Yan Mei's story, inspired by Qing dissidents, shows how women's words, though silenced, were power. Their courage, a spark that lit the truth. Women's resistance to censorship was a quiet force, shaping China's conscience. From the song's hidden satires to the Qing's revolutionary pamphlets, women's writings challenged injustice. Their voices a ripple that stirred reform. Their work, often destroyed, survived in memory, their ideas inspiring later movements. These women, through their defiance, proved words could be weapons. Their resilience, a flame that burned through censorship. Their legacy, a testament to the power of truth in a world of control. As Imperial China faced its final days, women's resistance reached a climax, their voices rising amid revolution. The Qing's fall in 1912 saw women join protests, write manifestos, and demand rights. Their courage, a crescendo built on centuries of defiance. From Yan Mei's poems to revolutionary marches, their efforts reshaped China, proving women could be architects of change. Their strength, a beacon in a new dawn. Let's meet Hu Lan, a student in 1910. Hu Lan was 20, her Beijing classroom, alive with the scent of chalk and hope, her voice sharp as she debated equality. She joined the revolution, printing flyers, the air thick with ink and gunpowder. Her family disowned her, but Hu Lan marched, her words rallying women, her courage a spark in the Republic's birth. When soldiers raided her press, she hid her work surviving. Hu Lan's story, inspired by women like Jin, shows how women's defiance lit the path to a new China. Their voices a chorus of change. The collective resilience of women in Imperial China was a force that bound generations. Their bonds a web of strength. They shared skills, writing, weaving, resisting their hands, a bridge across time. In crisis revolutions, famines, wars they led quietly, their compassion saving lives. These networks, built on trust, were China's heart, their resilience, a quiet power that carried the empire through its trials. Their legacy a reminder of the might of unity. Consider Fenling, a weaver in the Qing dynasty. Around 1875, Fenling was 40, her Suzhou workshop a haven of looms and laughter, the air rich with silk and tea. When floods destroyed homes, she rallied women to sew clothes, their needles flashing by lantern light, their gifts warming families. Her voice led them to rebuild, her hands guiding younger weavers. When officials ignored their pleas, petitioned, her courage a beacon. Fenling's story shows how women's bonds, though soft, were unbreakable. Their care a foundation for China's survival. Women's cultural contributions, from textiles to poetry, were a bridge to the modern world. Their work shaping China's identity. As trade and revolution opened China, their art carried values abroad, their resilience ensuring traditions endured. Their hands wove a legacy that stretched from ancient looms to modern cities, their voices a chorus that still echoes, their work a testament to the power of creativity in a world of constraint. Take Zhu Fang, a calligrapher in 1900. Zhu Fang was 30, her Shanghai studio alive with ink and lotus, her strokes bold yet graceful. Her scrolls, sold to Japanese traders, carried China's soul, but her family called her bold, urging silence. She taught women calligraphy, their brushes a rhythm of defiance, their art a legacy. When censors banned her, she hid her work, her courage keeping it alive. Zhu Fang's story shows how women's art was a cultural anchor, their strokes carrying China's heart across borders. If you're loving this journey through Imperial China, subscribe if you like the video. Your support keeps these stories alive.